Hey good folks, I'm here for CG Tuts, and welcome to part 4 of this hard surface modeling tutorial. The next part we'll be creating is the contact screw, but before we get to that, let's first save this project under a new title. Save scene as, and this is part 4. Let's bring back the outliner for a second. In the rear spring group, we've got the punch. We'll display it again. The contact screw needs to be in contact with the front spring. Obviously, it's not in the right position. And what we would need to do is scale down the entire rear spring. We would also need to rotate it back a bit on the x-axis, since it's a bit too much. I'll unparent for the time being the rear spring screw since I don't want to scale it down, and I'll scale down the rear spring to something like this. Now I'll parent the rear spring screw again to the rear spring, then maybe rotate it back a bit. Okay, something like this should be fine. In order to model the contact screw easily, I will need to rotate it to 180 degrees, so it's easy to model, but I do want to keep this information here, so I would be able to place it back in its original position. So I'll duplicate this one, and we'll hide the original one for the time being, and we'll drag this one outside so we can work on it more easily. We'll rotate it to 90 degrees on the x-axis, which isn't enough since it's got the rotation of the rear spring. So we need to decrease this rotation from the contact screws 90 degrees. So that would make it 81.216, and now we've got a perfect 90 degrees, and we can work on it a lot more easily. We don't need to see the outliner here. The length of the cylinder is a bit too long, so I'll need to scale it down on the y-axis a bit, something like this, and now we can start working on it. I'll choose these faces and deselect these faces, so I'm left with just these side faces. Now I'll shift right click, extrude face, scale it down a bit, something like this, and hit G to extrude again, and bring this outside, extrude it again, give it a little more, and scale it down on all axes to something of this sort. Select this edge ring and scale it down a bit. Now let's bevel this edge, shift right click, bevel edge, and let's give it a bit more, let's say 5 segments, and offset it a bit. We'll do the same for this edge here, this edge ring. And let's see, shift right click, bevel edge, and we can give it more of an offset, and maybe even some more segments. Okay, this is looking good. Now let's start working on the other side. We'll switch back to the side view. Let's select these faces and deselect those, so we have only the back faces selected. We'll extrude it once, bring it back a bit to say 0.015, scale it up on all axes to, let's say, 1.2. Okay, extrude it again, move it on the z-axis to 0.015 and scale it down to the original size, so that will mean 0.8. Now extrude it again, this time around we'll move it a bit more, something of this sort. We'll make it around 0.06 and scale it up to 1.3. 0.6 is too much, let's say 0.5. Now let's extrude it one more time to 0.5, and one more time to 0.05, and we'll extrude it one last time, 0.05, and scale it down to the original size, 0.7. Okay, you know what, I think I was a little bit cheap on these two extrusions. I think I could give those a little bit more. So let's see, we'll give those 0.08, and the next extrusion as well, 0.08. Okay, this is more like it. Let's select this edge ring and scale it up. We'll bevel it, shift right click, bevel edge, give it 5 segments and offset it a bit so it's nice and round. And looking at it, it's a bit too flat. I think I could have given it a bit more of a scale, so scale it a bit more. And now let's bevel it and offset it, and this is more like it. We can also bring this vertex outside or back on the z-axis. While this vertex is still selected, we'll shift right click and choose chamfer vertex, and we'll select the edge ring we've got created here and bevel it. Now 3 should be fine, but let's offset it, maybe even 4 segments, and offset it a bit more so it's a bit rounder on the inside here, but we still get this edge. Now looking at it, the grip of the contact screw is looking a bit too small comparing to the contact screw as a whole. So what we'll need to do is scale this part up. So I'll choose all these vertices and deselect the last edge ring vertices, and I will scale those up to something of this sort. That looks about right size, and we'll need to move it backwards on the z-axis, something of this sort. And we can now bevel this edge ring. Shift right click, bevel edge, and we'll offset it. Looks nice and round. Now let's add another edge ring here and scale it a bit more. We'll place it a bit more to the back and maybe even scale that down a bit and bevel that one as well. So we've got something that looks a bit more logical. We need to soften up some of the edges here. Well, actually it will be easier just to select all the edges and shift right click, soften, harden edge, and now harden some of those edges. Let's see, this edge ring should be hardened, so shift right click, soften, harden edge, and over here this edge ring. Okay, and now harden that as well. And over here, these two edge rings, shift right click, soften, harden edge, and the contact screw is looking great. Now we have the nudges along the grip here, which will add in the bump in the texturing stage. Now let's bring it back to the original position, and for that we'll copy the position of the punch line which we hidden. Copy and paste. Now that it is in the right position, I can tell that it's still a little bit too long, and we can afford to scale it down on the y-axis, even though we will lose some of the information we just modeled. Now let's rename stuff here. First, we don't need this one anymore, and we can rename punch 1 to contact screw. Okay. The next part I would like to model is the Wingnut screw fastener, which fasten the contact screw, as well as this screw over here, which fastens the tube to the frame. Let's get rid of the outline. I'll start off by creating a torus. And now let's see. We'll give it 30 or 40 divisions. 40 might be too much, let's say 30. As for the subdivision height, we'll need about 6. Now let's set the radius a bit smaller, something of this sort. Let's say 0.7, just to make things round here. We'll need to twist it a bit till we get this shape. Just make it around 84 or 85, should be precise. Let's select this edge ring. We'll align it with this inner edge ring, and same goes for this one. We'll need to align it with those. And frankly, we don't need this edge ring. We'll delete it, and also delete these unnecessary vertices. Okay. Now let's select this edge ring once again and scale it down. Now let's select this edge ring and bring it down. Okay, we'll bring this one down as well. We'll insert an edge loop tool here, and we'll bring that one up. Okay, now we can scale up this edge ring here, and same goes for this one. We can scale it up. Now let's look at it from above. This entire shape might be a little too large, so what we'll do is we'll select all of these and then deselect the inner vertices, and we'll scale the whole shape down and shift select everything to reverse the selection. And now we'll scale this one down to something of this sort, and again select this edge ring and we can make it a bit higher. Let's select this edge and scale it down a bit, and we can raise it up, and this one can go a little bit lower as well as this one, and this one can be a bit smaller, and the hole needs to be a lot smaller. Both sides of the hole aren't equal, so let's fix that real quick. And now we'll select them all and scale them down. We'll switch to the side view and we'll create a new cylinder. Create polygon primitives cylinder. We'll make the height 0.1. We want this one to connect to this polygon here. We'll actually make it 0.2, so the starting point would be a bit wider than the polygon here. We'll make the subdivision axis to 30. We'll switch over to the side view. We'll cut it in half by deleting the bottom faces. This will be one of those wings, so it needs to be approximately here, and we'll rotate it to approximately minus 45 degrees, and we need to place it somewhere around here. Let's select this edge ring and extrude it. Shift right click, extrude edge. We need to extrude it along the y-axis, only we need to do that in the world scale, not the local scale. So we'll click on this little gizmo. Since the world scale isn't tilted as our shape, we'll switch over to the side view and we'll just extrude it on the y-axis and then just drag it to the right position. Let's fit those vertices. First, we don't really need this face here, and now we can fit those vertices. This one snaps to this one, and so on. Now we are left with the middle ones, and what we'll do is snap them on the x-axis to the top and bottom ones, so they will be straight in the middle in the x-axis, and we'll snap them on the z-axis to the curve z-axis and y, and we can always eyeball it to make it fit. This one needs to be aligned with this one. The size doesn't seem right here. I'll scale those down a bit and place them a bit lower, something like this. Maybe even rotate those a bit. Okay, this is more like it. Let's merge both those shapes. Mesh, combine, and we'll need to delete its history, but not at the moment. Let's merge these vertices here. Need to merge these, merge vertices to center, hit G, G, and the last one, G. Okay, let's switch to top view. Now this top part needs to be a bit wider. We'll choose these vertices and we'll scale those on the x-axis to get a wider shape. And I want to get an increasingly wider shape, so I'll do this a bit more manually. I've got this edge here that's ending up here. I would like to continue on this edge loop here, and best way to do it will be from the side view so we can get it as accurate as possible. So let's see, shift right click, insert edge loop tool, try to make it as much as in the middle as possible. Okay, and now we need to merge both these vertices here. We'll choose them both, shift right click, merge vertices to center, and same goes for the other side. Okay, much better. Now we need to start beveling some edges here. First, while scaling, I made a bit of a mistake here. I need to fix that. The bottom needs to be flat, so I'll choose the bottom edges here and I'll align them with the other bottom vertices. Now we'll need to bevel out this edge ring along with this edge ring and the top edge ring here. Same goes for the other side. We'll select those, this edge as well. Same goes for this edge ring. And same goes for this edge ring and this edge ring. We'll shift right click, bevel edge, and we'll add one more segment here and offset it a bit more. We got these blank faces, which we already know how to take care of. Let's mark all of the edges, shift right click, fill hole, and now we need to create the same thing on the other side. So easiest way to do that, switch to top view, we'll delete the bottom faces, and now we need to duplicate it on the opposite end. So we'll go to mesh, mirror geometry, options. I'm using the +Z axis, and I've got two options here. First of all, I do want to merge the vertices, and I've got the option to merge vertices with the original. If I'll hit apply, we'll get this result where all the vertices are connected, only these got connected in the middle. Not the exact result I was after, and I've got the option to uncheck the merge with the original, and then I won't get that result, but I would have to connect the vertices. So the choice is up to you. You can either do it with merge the original, delete the edges and rebuild those, or just do it without merge the original and merge it manually. I think that this way will be just a little bit faster. So I'll do that real quick. Mark them both, shift right click, merge vertices to center, and I'll continue on along this seam to merge all the vertices. I'll pause the recording and we'll continue on after that. Okay, all the vertices are connected and we've got one shape. Now I would like to bevel this top edge ring here. Choose it, shift right click, bevel edge, and I will give it even 5 segments and offset it to be round. We'll choose all the edges here and shift right click, fill hole to fill those missing faces, and all we have left to do is soften the edges. Mark all of the edges here, shift right click, soften harden edge, soften edge. We can harden these 2 edge rings, shift right click, soften harden edge, and the bottom one as well. Hit G to repeat the last process. I forgot to connect these vertices, so we've got this coloring that's indicating that. Let me fix that real quick. The Wingnut fastener is all said and done. I'm not going to create these screw marks inside, since I won't be actually seeing those. We can now safely place this one in the right position. And yeah, we need to center the pivot for this one. We'll go to modify center pivot. We will also set the pivot at the bottom. Okay, now let's see. Let's bring it over here. Let's copy the X rotation from this one, which is 111 and some change. Just copy that one and paste it to this one. And obviously it needs to be a lot smaller. Let's scale that down. Okay. We need to rotate the Wingnut fastener on the y-axis, but obviously if we'll do that, we won't get the desired result. So what we need to do is first, let's copy this value and send it back to 0. Now we'll temporarily group the Wingnut fastener and we'll bring back the outliner. There's a group. Let's center its pivot, modify center pivot, and obviously set it in the bottom as before. Now we'll rotate the group to the same value we had before, and we'll rotate the Wingnut fastener itself on the y-axis till we get the desired result. And yes, it still is a bit too much inside there, so we'll drag it back. And as you can see, the Wingnut fastener is still not perfectly aligned in the same angle. So what we need to do is add to this value the rotation value of the rear spring. So let's see. I'll copy this value and paste it to the calculator plus this value. And this is the value I need, so I'll just copy that and paste it to the rotation X. And now it's perfectly aligned and we are good to go. We can now unparent this one and delete the group. We are left with the same result though, and we can now rename this one to Wingnut screw. We'll actually call this one Wingnut fastener 1 since we are going to duplicate it, and the second one would go over here. So let's first zero out the rotation and let's see. This one needs to go here. Rotate it on the z-axis to minus 90 degrees, something like this for the y. As for the height, it needs to be aligned with this nut in the back, so we'll just align it, and we can even scale it down a bit. so it would fit here. Now I would like to close up this hole here. Actually, you know what, let's drag it outside so we can work on it a bit more easily. We don't need this hole here, so what we'll do is get rid of all the faces here. Okay, we can delete those, and now we can mark this edge loop and fill it. Shift right click, fill hole, and same goes for the other side. We'll hit G to repeat the last process. We'll mark all the back vertices here. Okay, and just merge those to center. So shift right click, merge vertices to center. And now just to give the feeling that we've got an edge of a screw here, choose this face, shift right click, extrude face. We'll extrude it outside just a little bit and scale it inside a bit on all axes. So it would look like we have the end of a screw here. Let's move this back inside. We've got the 2 nut screws all set and ready. And this brings to a conclusion chapter 4. In the next chapter, we'll finish off the modeling portion of this tutorial.